And Bradford with the Penny Pinch Guide to Personal Finance. And today we're going to cover how you can use IRS Form 7004 to get an extension on your business taxes. Since tomorrow is the business tax deadline, which is going to be March 15th of every single year, it's important to understand how you can actually extend that filing deadline so that way you don't get penalized. But first things first, I do want to address that even though we are going to be mitigating any sort of filing penalty by being able to extend our filing deadline, any taxes that you do owe are still required to be paid by the deadline, which technically it is the 15th day of the third month every single year. And since those months are not changing, it is going to be March 15th for any previous tax year. Now, hopefully you don't have a whole lot of money that you're actually going to end up owing if you are requesting a tax filing extension because you were keeping up with it with your quarterly tax payments up to this point. With that kind of caveats out of the way, let's jump into the form and understand how we can actually fill it out. Fortunately, it's very simple and it'll only take us about a minute. So here we have Form 7004. Fortunately, it is just 8 lines that we have to fill out. Now, if you do have any questions that are after and aside from this video of what we actually cover, please go and pull up the Form 7004 instructions, which I will link down in the description, as well as the pinned comment down below. So starting off the first part, it's just gonna be putting what your name is and then your identifying number. So this is either gonna be your social security number, or it's gonna be more likely, it's gonna be your EIN. So in this situation, we're gonna be filing this for a tax filing extension for a partnership. So here we got John Smith. This is where he lives. Here's his address. Now, for actually entering into part 1 with line 1, we're going to enter the form code for the return listed below that this application is applicable for. So for this one, since we are doing a partnership and partnerships are required to file an informational tax return of Form 1065, we're going to come down here, see Form 1065, and see that that is going to be form code 09. So with that in mind, we're going to take 09, copy and paste it right here. Next up, we're going to be getting into part 2 and then line 2. So if the organization is a foreign corporation that does not have an office or place of business in the United States, check here. So if you're operating and you're making money within the United States, but you don't have some sort of actual hard location, that you have some sort of corporate office, then you will be checking this box. So not applicable in this situation since this business is being operated within the United States. Line 3. So basically, if the corporation is the common parent of a group that tends to file a consolidated return, check here. Not applicable for most people. If you have any questions on what that is, check out the instructions for Form 7004. Line 4. Then if the organization is a corporation or partnership that qualifies under Regulations 1.6081-5, check here. Now, there are some certain entities that are going to automatically qualify for an extension of the filing deadline. And really that's going to be if you have a business that is operating and it is not headquartered in the United States or Puerto Rico, that's going to be the main thing. There are some other additional qualifiers where you would actually qualify for that automatic tax extension. And you can see what those are on the instructions for this form. Now getting to the next part, 5A. For this one, John Smith, he's just using the regular calendar tax year is going to be the same as his fiscal tax year. So that makes it really simple. We're just going to come in here and say, hey, this is for 2023 for the previous tax year. But if you have a fiscal year that is different from the calendar year, you need to just specify what that fiscal year is for you. Now, note in this form, you cannot change what your fiscal year is. You have to submit a approval request to the IRS with a different tax form that is outside of the scope of this video. But for this one, you're just going to put what your current fiscal year is based on what you've already sent to the IRS. So here, we're not going to be filling that out, but if you did, you would put that date, what day of the month it is, and what tax year. Now, if you have a short tax year, let's say you just started your business on like April of last year, so it was only 8 months long, you would come in here and you would say, what is the reason? Maybe you changed your accounting periods. Like what I mentioned, you would send in an approval request to change what your fiscal year is, and that was approved. If you're having a consolidated return be filed, and then others, see the instructions to see what the other things might be, and you're going to have to attach an explanation to this form. And then the last part, going into 6, 7, and 8, it is going to be your tentative total tax based on how much money do you think you should have owed for the previous tax year. Put that information down here. What is the total payments and credits that you have already made and credits that you would qualify for? So enter that here in line 7, and basically balance due. You're going to take the difference. Do you still owe money to the IRS, or potentially did you overpay, which hopefully isn't the case with business taxes. Now in this one, just to make it simple, we're saying that John Smith, his total tax due and his total payments due were the same amount. Now once you know this information, while you can file this and mail it in with the U.S. Post Office, I'd recommend just getting it in using the IRS's website, and you can e-file it. And we're going to have the links on what you need to do to actually be able to e-file this form down in the description below. And then the last thing I want to talk about is if you do have a balance due, please, you must pay that so that way you're not getting penalized for paying your taxes late. And if you've done your taxes before, you should be familiar with what the IRS's online software is for being able to pay your taxes online, specifically for business taxes. But even if you hadn't, if you go and you e-file this, it is going to give you the option to basically do an automated withdrawal from whatever your checking or business account is to be able to pay those taxes. So that wraps up how to actually request a filing extension for your business taxes. But if you have any questions on how to actually get those business taxes done, check out our business tax filing playlist right here. I want to thank you for joining me today. And from your first penny to your first million, we're here to help.